everybody, happy spring. Welcome to the April Lymphedema Patient Roundtable hosted by LymphaPress. My name is Alexa. I'm the Marketing and Communications Associate here at LymphaPress. I'm also a primary lymphedema patient, and you might know me on social media as the Lymphy Life. I'm going to introduce our lovely panel of ladies here tonight as we get started. So, starting at my top here, we have Catherine Rosenberg. She is a secondary lymphedema patient, and she's a longtime LymphaPress user, which we love, and she's a math teacher. So any math questions can go to Catherine. We have Angela Jones, our lipolymphedema patient, and just lovely soul. So happy to see you here, Angela.
Thank you.
Karen Ashforth, certified lymphedema therapist and fibrosis queen, is here tonight. So happy to see you too, Karen. And then bringing up the rear, last but not least, Amanda Sobey, our Canadian Madam President of the Lymphedema Association of Manitoba. She's also a nutritionist and fitness extraordinaire as well. So happy to have you here, Amanda. And we're happy all of you attendees are here. So if you want to throw in the chat just where you're coming in from, we'd love to say hello and see who's here. Any questions, you can put them in the Q&A box. We like to tell you that we shy away from giving you any direct medical advice, obviously, but if you have any general medical questions, we've got Karen here, and we can speak from our own experiences as well. And we're just gonna hop right into it. So I'm glad that you all are here. I wanted to start with a recap of Lymphedema Awareness Month. That was in March. And there's a lot going on, both online and in person. So anybody on the panel, what are some things that were going on in your community for lymphedema awareness? And did you learn anything new or see anything that was especially promising in the lymphedema world? Anybody? Amanda, go ahead.
So I had the privilege for World Lymphedema Day, sorry, you guys, my dog is playing on my arm and it's really distracting me. The Lymphedema Association of Manitoba, we put on our very first in-person symposium after a couple of years, which is really exciting. We called it Connecting the Community, and we recruited all of our local talent and therapists and connected the therapists with the patients, with the doctors and the surgeons. And it was just a really awesome way to get to meet local support, which is something that I don't think has been done, especially with COVID recently. And then we kicked it off with the, sorry, I thought my dog was choking on her ball. And then we did the Light Up the Legislature building, which was heavily recognized by all members of parliament. We actually got invited to go into their assembly meeting, and we got a round of applause by 57 people of parliament that stood up and commemorated and applauded Lymphedema Day for all of our efforts, all of our actions. And on top of that, other people of parliament actually approached us, the board members for the Lymphedema Association of Manitoba, and we have put together an official petition that is currently circulating around all the cabinet ministers to get signed to recognize lymphedema. And there's a whole petition that the Lymphedema Association in Manitoba has posted online at change.org. So if anybody's watching it, wants to help my province and my hometown of Manitoba, please feel free to sign and to share. But it looks like we're starting to make some difference up here in Canada, which I'm super excited about.
That is so awesome, Amanda. That's like a ton of movement just in the last month. That's amazing. That's really cool. Please share the link with me. Even I can send it out in the replay later, or you can pop it in chat. That would be great.
How do I do that? Hold on. Can you guys talk? I'll try to see if I can pop it into chat right now. Hold on. I'll be back.
You guys, in the meantime, we've got Rich from New Jersey, Layla from Southern New Jersey, Alana from Houston, Irene in sunny Arizona, Barbara in South Carolina, Diane in Victoria, British Columbia, Kim from Florida, Tina from, she says, the wonderful land of Minnesota where they hit 70 degrees today, RJ from Ohio, Lynn in the Sunshine State, Rochelle, new to the group from Oak Park, Michigan. Gosh, names coming in from all across the US. We are so happy you're here tonight. And we've already got a question. So does anybody else want to go before we get to these questions? Or we can shift gears. Anybody? I'll go to a question then. We've got a question for Karen. from Anne, who says she's from Montreal. She would like to ask Karen if she thinks it's advantageous to use donning gloves when doing the daily lymphatic massage. Do you use them in your practice?
Oh, that is very interesting that you should say that because donning gloves give you a little more traction on the skin. And so they are actually very useful for people who have fibrosis, where you might need to kind of get a little bit more oomph to the massage. So I think donning gloves are great. I also use TheraBand or Dysum, which are kind of tacky, sticky types of things in the clinic. When I'm doing MLD, I tend to use my hands because I'm doing other deeper antifibrotic things with tools. But I give you my both thumbs up for the donning gloves. I think that's a great idea.
Awesome. Thank you, Karen. And perfect timing. Amanda's back.
I just emailed you.
Oh, perfect. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Yay. Oh, sorry. I have an interruption now with my cat. So next question, we have Anita, who says she has lymphedema in her left leg after 4 lymph nodes were removed due to fallopian tube surgery. Now she finds that she'll need her knee replaced. What should she watch out for with this complication?
I would not hesitate to have the knee replacement surgery, but you're going to want to prepare for it, both for before and for after. And so you ready to write a bunch of stuff down here? So beforehand, you want to get rid of as much swelling as you possibly can. You want to decongest, compress, and then get yourself ready for after surgery, because it's normal to have some post-surgical swelling. But with the lymphedema, it could be a little bit more than you're used to. And I don't know, you didn't mention whether you have a lymphedema pump or not, but I have patients that have found them to be very, very helpful in recovery after surgery, in really kind of evacuating that post-surgical swelling in addition to the lymphedema. And keep in mind that it is normal to have post-surgical swelling for months after surgery. And then if you have lymphedema, it can persist even a little bit longer. So you're going to want to just really get aggressive. But if you do have a pump, you need to get your doctor's oversight to start using it after surgery. And after a knee surgery, I would wait maybe a week or 2, because you really want the wound to kind of approximate and heal well. And then you can start using it on the lowest pressure with your doctor's blessing, and then gradually ramp up to where you were before. And generally with a knee surgery, you're going to be pretty good to go after 6 to 8 weeks. The scar tissue should be pretty well healed at that point. And often with knee surgeries, they're going to want to really get you moving right away, which will also help the swelling. Because of the extra swelling, you may want to be mindful about elevating your leg a little bit more when you're at rest, and being sure to use good compression and just really listen to your body. So the other thing I'd really love to recommend is a resource called Prepare for Surgery, Heal Faster. It's a book by Peggy Huddleston, and it uses evidence-based techniques to help you with visualization to set your mind and your body so that you really can have optimal healing after surgery. I cannot recommend it enough. So you can just Google it. They often have it at the library. You can download it. There's a whole website that Peggy has, lots and lots of resources out there. So those are my 2 cents. Does anyone else have any thoughts about surgery? I know you guys are not strangers, not you, Catherine, huh?
No. So I've actually had a hip replacement on my lymphatic side. And one of the things that was probably the best thing that I ever did was communicate with the surgeon who was doing my surgery ahead of time, and explain to him what my lymphedema was, how it worked, and what I do on a daily basis, so he can help to modify or work with what I currently use. With that, I actually woke up from surgery with my leg compression wrapped, so that this way it prevented my swelling from getting any worse. So he actually arranged for a certified lymphedema therapist to come into the operating room to compression wrap my leg before they woke me up from anesthesia in the recovery room. That's one. Number two is obviously compression wrapping yourself is going to be a little bit difficult because of the flexibility from the knee surgery. Therefore, my suggestion would be to find out from either your therapist or your whoever you see for your lymphedema as a doctor about getting some kind of Velcro wrap to make it easier for somebody else to be able to assist you in applying that compression. And the last thing is one of the nice perks about the Optimal Plus is if your knee can't handle that pressure on your knee, you can turn off the channels in that specific area to still be able to utilize your pump in your other areas while allowing that knee to recover and heal.
I'm so glad you mentioned that. And that reminded me of another great thing. And that is that for a lot of people with knee surgery, oftentimes it can be painful when you are starting back into your pump because it pushes the knee into full extension. And so I recommend to a lot of my patients just to put like a towel roll or a pillow under the knee, and that can keep it in a slightly bent position. And that's a whole lot more comfortable. And that goes for anyone who has knee issues, whether you have surgery or not. So there's all kinds of wonderful modifications that you can do to make your life happier.
And just going off of what you just said about the fact that the pump could, because of the extension, you could also start with just turning off the channels up from the knee and above and start below the knee. And then once your leg is handling it a little bit okay, then add in some of the other chambers as well. So start off small, but obviously do it with what your doctor suggests. But make sure you inform them of what pressures you're using, how you're using it, so that this way, because if you use sequential mode, which is where it fills and it stays filled, that might be a little bit more painful than if you're using the wave mode where only 4 chambers are filled at any given time. So you might need to play around a little bit, and I would play around with the modes before you have the knee replacement done, so you know what to do and how to do it when the time is absolutely necessary.
That's a really good point. And if you do have an Optimal Plus, you can change the modes through the LymphaPress app on your phone. So you just go in your app store and search LymphaPress, and you'll be able to download it, and you can control your pump through the app, which is super handy. We're getting so many questions. I cannot wait to get into this. Oh, and someone said in the chat, Kathleen, I love my pump. I'm so glad to hear that. We love our pumps too. So where to even start? Well, here's a question that's for the whole panel. Barbara asked, which is better, compression sock or wrap? I know sometimes that comes down to preference or what you have access to. Do you all want to go around the table, ladies, and just kind of speak to your experience? And maybe Karen can also speak about the pros and cons of each, or if there is. I don't personally really know the differences so much. I use a sock for myself personally, but who'd like to go ahead? Come on, y'all.
I'll go. So for me, because of the stage of lymphedema that I do have in my lower leg, I actually have to utilize my compression stockings, because any small little bit of air that is in the airspace allows my leg to enlarge when I use a compression wrap. So I'm either using a compression stocking or I'm using a Velcro wrap, but underneath my Velcro wrap, I have to utilize some sort of liner. A lot of times I'll use a Jopes Relax as my liner because it's made custom to my leg, but it will allow, it doesn't allow that extra spacing that like the foam can allow for. And that extra spacing causes a problem for me because of the amount of fibrosis that I do have. but it really is totally patient dependent. So what works for me may not work for Alexa, Amanda, or Angela. It just really, it's a trial and error to figure out what the best option is. Because then when you think about it, you also have multiple varieties of compression stockings that you can choose from. So you have to figure out which one is the best option. So because, you know, if you're using a class 3, but there's 3 different brands of class 3, every company uses a little bit different shape for their model in making them to the same exact measurements. So that's one option. And then you also have different materials that different companies have for the same exact compression class. So that can play a role too. So you want to make sure that you have what is best for you. And it's a total trial and error. I know it's an expensive trial and error, but once you figure it out, it makes life so much easier.
I'm glad you brought up the relax too. I call my Jobst Relax the sweatpants of compression garments. Like that's kind of my comfy around the house one, or I wear my tribute night garment because I work from home, and I noticed when I started working from home, my lymphedema changed because I was more sedentary. I used to have a commute. I used to run to the bus stop. I used to go, you know, all this stuff. And now with a remote position, I'm walking from my bedroom, the kitchen to the office. That's it. So my leg kind of got heavier because I'm just sitting more. So getting a standing desk helped, but also wearing softer garments like the Jobst Relaxed or the Jobst Confidence is another softer one. Or my nighttime garment during the day kind of helps. So you kind of do need that trial and error, Catherine said, and you kind of build up an arsenal of all of your different compression as well over time. Angela, how about you? What do you find? Oh, sorry, Amanda. Putting Angela on the spot first.
Because I have a combination of the lipedema and lymphedema, it's always a trial and error. And so I tend to wear compression that's called sleep slimmers. And when I first found out about it, it sounds like pajamas, but it's not. It's a really, really comfortable legging, pant style legging, and they're really comfortable, not too much compression, so neither condition gets irritated. And that's about it for me. That's I've tried, you know, almost extreme compression. That was a disaster. So I tend to stick with the sleep slimmers.
I like that. Sleep slimmer sounds like a tongue twister. Say that 10 times fast. Go ahead, Amanda.
I think I piggyback on everyone. I used to just think that there was only, when I was told I had to wear medical grade compression, I was like, that's it. I'm only getting one pair and that's it. And then I think after about 20 years, I now look at medical supplies like I do shoe shopping. Where are you wearing it? What do you need it for? And there's pros and cons to kind of all the supplies that are in the market, and they're catered to different body shapes and different sizes. So getting to know the manufacturers, getting to know the different products, and I'll let Karen just grace us with the education between the different types of fabrics, between circular knit and flat knit and bandaging, because there is different kind of applications and sciences behind that. But diversity, I think, is key to get the type of comfort that you want, and then you just build on it. You start with one key pivotal piece, kind of like that little tiny black dress, and then you start to learn to layer it and just add to your wardrobe, because you recognize that not every occasion is going to require the same supply. So I just think get to learn, and that's a really, really great question. I do both. I do stockings, I do wraps, I do night garments, I do circades. I do it all just because I like the flexibility. I like the diversity, and different times of the month and different circumstances require for just different things.
A great answer, and so true.
You guys basically said it all, but I would like to talk about the different types of fabrics because it does make a difference. And sleep slimmers are not medical grade, but a lot of women with lipedema sure love them, and they're just taken off. And other of the cellulite garments that have textures to them, I call those my gateway drug, because people who are just starting with compression that may need to go through an adjustment and may not like compression at first, the textured compression is very comfortable. And especially if you're maybe just a stage 0 or 1, it will give you probably adequate compression because the texture makes up for having to squeeze so hard. But if you have stage 2 or 3, then you really need to be looking at something that's more custom. And in between that are the circular knits that everyone's talking about. They work very well. They're easy to get on and off. They are medical grade. And the custom flat knit is the hardest to put on, but gives you the most containment. And they are made specifically to each individual. Of course, they cost more, but they last longer. And I am a huge, huge fan of wraps. I'm a huge fan of wraps over other types of compression, whether it's a quilted compression, like you guys have been talking about, the Relax, or many other different brands out there, or even elastic compression. And people who have swelling in their foot and use a wrap on their lower leg can benefit from a hybrid stocking that puts compression just on the foot, but is really loose and is basically just a liner from the ankle up through the calf, which makes it really easy to get on. So a lot of my older patients that just struggle with pulling on elastic compression love the combination of the wraps plus the liner stocking. So there are many, many, many different things out there. And I recommend that you talk to your lymphedema therapist, to your fitter, to people that are very experienced and can give you options that are tailored for you.
Thanks, Karen. I like what you said about layering the compression, because that's something that a lot of us do, even when using our compression pumps. I know Catherine is big on this. I do this too, where you wear your quilted night garments underneath, the pump garment, and it adds like a little extra oomph to the treatment, which is great. And we did get actually a couple questions about pumps, specifically a couple of people asking how long they should be in their pumps. That is something that you definitely want to talk to your doctor or your lymphedema therapist about, and make sure it's something that you're tolerating well. And talking with them, if you feel like it's not enough, talk with them about that, and they will advise you based on your specific situation. So that is that. We're getting so many questions, guys. I love this. And someone brought up knee replacements, and Tina said that we just talked about that, and that'll be in the replay. The replays come out a couple days later after the live event. It'll go automatically to your email since you registered. So if we don't get to everything, or if you came in late, you'll get to catch up soon. I promise. So getting to these questions, Catherine, there's one you wanted to answer. Fenton had a question that said, my daughter had a question about the safety of hot tubs for people with lymphedema. Though swimming in clean pools is awesome exercise and therapy for patients with lymphedema, I was told very hot water long-term is harmful to the lymphatics. Also, very warm water can potentially be more attractive to bad microbes. What are your opinions? Catherine, you wanted to jump on this first.
Yes. So I actually approached this question with one of my lymphatic surgeons, and he had said to me that as long as I was not in a hot tub for more than 15 minutes and that the temperature was basically not over 100 degrees, that everything is a-okay. Obviously, as long as you know that the hot tub, it has been cleaned or it's a personally owned hot tub, I personally would recommend that you utilize a hot tub that you know who the owner is, so that you can ensure the fact that it is clean, because public hot tubs you can't guarantee, especially because sometimes, even though they say that children under the age of 18 are not supposed to be in them, that does not mean that they're not going to go in them.
And go in them too.
Exactly. So with that being the case, utilizing the warm water can actually help your lymphatic system in terms of utilizing it helps with your venous system, and when the venous system can help push the lymphatic system through vasodilation.
So just to tag on to that, I would absolutely not use a public hot tub. One, because of the hygiene. Two, because you can't necessarily control the temperature. And I agree with Catherine that 100 is a fairly safe temperature for most people, but it really depends on the individual. I have some patients that have to turn it down to body temperature, which is 98.6. Other patients can tolerate a little bit more. And some people think, oh, if I put my arm or my leg out of the hot tub, it'll be fine. But the hot tub actually raises your core body temperature. So it's going to affect the lymphedema, even if you aren't submerged, and might as well get the benefit of the water pressure on the lymphedema, because that can be really helpful. In fact, I will even recommend to patients that they use hot tubs as an exercise medium, because you can get some depth in that water and that can be helpful. But you do need to be cautious about the heat, because we know that heat is a risk factor for lymphedema, and it's very individual how it's going to affect your body. But hope that's helpful.
Go ahead, Amanda.
I love how we all just piggyback. We're just the greatest team ever. I would like to recommend start in a hot tub, like in a bath, and see how you do, because you can control the cleanliness. It's in the safety of your own home. And for me, if I go in a hot bath, it's excruciating. It's painful. So I think if you wanted a trial and error and you don't have access to a hot tub and you're curious, instead of doing this on your holiday, I think what I've learned with lymphedema and just being here, preparation is key. Try to do as much upfront, learning about this condition in the safety of your own home, where it's not on holidays or at a special occasion where you can't predict the outcome. Because for me, going in just a bath in my own home is very, very uncomfortable and unpleasant. So therefore, for me, I just don't do it.
That's a good tip to practice. Practice at home first. All right. Y'all are chatty tonight. I love it. Okay, let's see. Oh my goodness, so many great questions. All right, let's go with, I saw a question from, I think it was from Irene about, yes, Irene was asking, they're trying to figure out who could help them pick out a motorized wheelchair because of lymphedema in their legs. And someone else also had a question about their lymphedema affecting their gait. Is there any suggestions for mobility aids with lower extremity lymphedema?
So a lot of insurances will cover motorized wheelchairs, and in order to get them covered, you need a doctor's prescription. And a lot of doctors who are physiatrists, that's physical medicine doctors, rehabilitation doctors, are often very savvy to that. There are often specific physical therapy clinics that know a lot about mobility. So I would ask around, because not every clinician knows about the options or is qualified to help you with that. But lymphedema does absolutely affect mobility, and even lymphedema in the upper body can affect balance and safety because it throws you off kilter. So I would strongly recommend, if you can see a lymphedema therapist who is a physical therapist, they can advise you on exercises for mobility that can help your safety.
Mm-hmm. Good answer.
And with the mobility, if you are a lower extremity patient, it would be helpful, as Karen said, about having your CLT be a physical therapist, because they can actually show you how visually and have you do it in front of them to practice, so that when you go home, you're walking properly, you're doing the stairs properly. And those are important factors, because you don't want to throw another part of your body off because of your one area that can be difficult.
Thank you for that, Catherine. That leads into another question we got from Anita in Tampa. She asked, does Medicare pay for any of this?
Absolutely. So Medicare pays for lymphedema therapy if you have Part B, and if there's a supplemental insurance, then it's covered 100% after your small deductible. This would be for occupational or physical therapy. It would not be for massage therapy. But yes, the basic lymphedema treatment is covered. The equipment in terms of compression garments, we just passed a bill that is going to be enacted next year. We have no idea what that's going to look like, but that is going to hopefully take some of the financial burden off of people for paying for garments. And I'm happy to say that most insurances, including Medicare, cover lymphedema pumps. So there is quite a bit of coverage out there.
Yeah. And if you have any questions about lymphedema pumps, feel free to reach out to marketing@lymphopress.com with your location, and I can hook you up with your local LymphoPress rep to answer any questions that might be specific to your situation and coverage. So Crystal is asking, what about liposuction for treatment of lymphedema, I'm assuming? So anybody would like to chime in about liposuction for lymphedema? I know that's a big treatment for lipedema, suction-assisted protein lipectomy, or SAPL. Anybody on the panel?
I strongly recommend that you shop around and that you interview a few different surgeons, and that you also make sure that this is a surgeon who is experienced in treating your diagnosis, whether it's lymphedema or lipedema. And I have patients that get a lot of relief from the liposuction, but I can't emphasize enough that it is very important that you use compression after surgery for many months. I know that different surgeons have different protocols, and one surgeon requires it for even up to a year. And I see changes in my patients during that year. We have to keep making the garments smaller. So if you go to just a general plastic surgeon, just a general, surgeon that's doing liposuction for cosmetic reasons, you may not be happy. You may want to instead make sure that you find someone who's specialized in this world.
Amanda, I saw your hand first.
Beat ya. I think when it comes to surgery and lymphedema and surgery and lipedema, I think I don't know how other people will support this decision, but I heard not only from my personal story, but from just other people, you want to try to do as much as you possibly can I think the most disappointing thing that I realized about having lymphedema is I had to take ownership of, wearing the medical supplies, eating a proper lifestyle, getting physical fitness, and doing this on a consistent basis. Your surgeon, if that is an option for you, like Karen says, you want to do your due diligence and research. You just don't want any plastic surgeon or just anybody out there that says that they can help you. This is an illness, this is a disease. And you want to go in there in your most optimal form so that your recovery is going to be easier. Plus, there's also going to be a requirement of needs that you have to do post-surgery, like wear your garments, stay active, eat well. So if you get into really good habits pre-surgery and you do lose size, you want to let the surgeon kind of work for his bacon, right? You want to let him deal with and deal with the most problematic areas of your body. If you can naturally do a lot of things in the safety and comfort of your own home, I think from seeing people go through surgery on a very daily basis, it's not fun. Recovery is hard. But if you can do a lot you can in the beginning, I think it just is, it improves everyone's outcome on the end side. And I think Catherine has a lot to offer to that as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually am scheduled to have the SAPL done on my leg in June. Depending on your insurance, you may have to do several months of fighting with the insurance company to get it pre-approved. However, one big recommendation that I would have is find out what type of compression the doctor wants you to utilize after the surgery. Once you find out what that compression is, you need to try it and make sure that your body can handle it. because why would you want to go through a surgery that you can't follow through with the post-surgical protocol to basically undo what they just did? You don't go through a surgery to undo everything. So I know a lot of the surgeons who do the liposuction, they require either 1 or 2 layers of the flat neck garments. So if you've never worn a flat neck garment, you really need to make sure before you schedule to have a liposuction surgery that they're going to require you to wear a flat neck garment, that you do, because there is a huge difference. And you girls on here can confirm that with in regards to a circular neck garment versus a flat neck garment. There is a big difference. So if you've never worn one, you need to try it before you schedule a surgery to make sure that your body can handle it.
And Becky and Karen just put some great resources in the chat. Becky mentioned that there are many Facebook groups that provide lots of information on doctors' procedures and costs from patients who have gone through this. And Karen dropped lipedema.org in the chat, which is a great resource for lipedema. And next month is June, right? Yes, that's Lipedema Awareness Month. So there's going to be a flood of information, I'm sure, all throughout the month of June. So keep your eyes peeled for that. And Danielle had a question that relates to this. She asked, what sort of testing do you need to ask for if you think you may have lipedema in addition to lymphedema? It's a really good question. Angela, do you have any insight or experience with this?
I was actually diagnosed by a physical therapist who worked with lipedema patients and lymphedema patients. And I eventually was diagnosed by plastic surgeon.
Wow. And they knew what lipedema was. That's pretty cool. Awesome. Well, thank you. Let's see. Oh yeah, Karen also added in the chat lymphaticnetwork.org, which is the Lymphatic Education and Research Network. They have a listing of their centers of excellence, which are various lymphedema and lipedema treatment centers and surgical centers and everything that go through an application process, like very rigorous standards to be awarded this designation. So they're the good places. So they have a good listing on there. Let's see. Renata said they love their LymphaPress Optimal Plus, love this roundtable. Apparently my surgery resulted in neuropathy, oh no, in pelvis, etc. And when swelling is not controlled, it makes lymphedema worse. Sorry to hear that, Renata. Goodness. Let's see. Vanessa asked, how do you deal with a doctor that will not listen to us about our diagnosis? That is a good question. And too bad Kelly's not here tonight, because he probably has a lot to say on that topic as well.
I can probably comment on this one too. Go ahead, Karen.
Said get a new doctor. Go ahead, Karen.
Second opinion.
Yes. Second opinion.
And my other piece of advice is, if they're not educated on it, educate them, meaning bring whatever you can find that relates to your condition with you, and then tell them, please read this and we'll talk about it at my next visit, and schedule your next visit with them, so that this way you hold them accountable.
That's a better answer. I like your answer.
But I do agree with the second opinion. And if the second opinion, I was always told, as Alexa said, that I'm a pediatric lymphedema patient from cancer. So I was always told by one of my radiation oncologists when I was 8 years old, if a doctor doesn't accept the fact that you're going for a second opinion, you walk out that door and you never walk back in, because that tells you that they're questioning their validity on what they're telling you.
Rochelle has another good 2 words, advocate yourself, which is key with living with lymphedema or lipedema. We are our own best advocates here. Amanda, go ahead.
Can I just jump in? Yeah, so I have a doctor that knows about lymphedema, but says it's no big deal. So it's very disheartening. Yeah, I think second opinion and advocate and teach. I just remember him saying, well, it's no big deal to put on stockings. I'm like, well, it takes me half an hour in the morning. Like, have you worn them? And he's like, no. I was like, I really want to give you a pair and see you struggle. Like, I really want to see you try. And I'm like, not only that, like this condition affects every aspect of my life. So I think if someone's gonna, you or not listen to you wholeheartedly, you owe it to yourself to find your tribe, especially people who are educated and just are willing to listen. There's a difference between not knowing the condition and wanting to learn versus assuming like you know everything about it and just not willing to listen to your patient.
Yeah, and MJ shared an anecdote in the chat. She says, I was diagnosed with primary lymphedema by Dr. Chen at the Cleveland Clinic. When I met with him to get an update on congenital lymphedema that was decades earlier, I was quite surprised at the new diagnosis. Yeah, it's always good to check and get second opinions. Let's see. Well, we've got, again, you guys are coming in hot with all these questions. I apologize if we haven't gotten to everything too. I know we're running at the 20-minute. Go ahead, Catherine.
Who is it? Linda Robian, sorry if I mispronounced your name, put a comment in about how does one travel with lymphedema. So I am like the queen of traveling with lymphedema. So with that being the case, couple things. One is, and Alexa, I'll send this to you again so you have it. The TSA Cares card.
Oh yeah.
Call that 800 number, and that will allow you to get extra help through the security lines, and they will actually get you all the way down to your gates in a somewhat rapid way. I fly in and out of Philadelphia, and that can get to be a very busy airport. I've gotten through security as quick as 10 minutes through using this. With my lymphedema and having to go through the full body head to toe check because I have metal in every part of my body. But other things is you definitely should take, if you have a compression pump, definitely bring it with you. And it does not count as a carry-on because it's a medical device. I suggest that you bring it on the plane with you. And the reason for that is airlines do not want to be responsible if something happens to that. And typically about compression pumps are about $5,000 plus or minus a little bit here or there. So you don't want to have that, that issue, as well as they are completely safe to go through the scanner without a problem. You do have to take them out of the bag, but it basically is run just like a computer is. They wipe it off and they check everything off. And last thing is just don't be afraid when your lymphedema sets off the scanner because your one leg is a little bit larger than the other one, or your arm is bigger, and it could set off the sensor on the scanner that they have to do a pat down on you. So don't take it personally, just kind of go with it, because they're not going to make you take your compression wrap off, but just explain to them what it is and potentially have a doctor's note to go along with, so that this way it saves you some time because they can read very quickly.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I've had my lymphedema set off the scanner a few times too. And the first time it happened, it kind of felt like, I mean, I almost cried if I'm honest, because I felt so kind of embarrassed and like violated because they were asking like to look at my leg and can I take off my garment and all of that. And it was very overwhelming the first time it happened. But once I realized, yeah, it's just because my leg's a little denser, so it looks a little funny on the scanner, I guess. And you just have to tell them it's a medical condition. No, I'm not going to remove my garment. You know how long it's going to take me to get it back on if you want me to remove this thing. But yeah, that's all great. Catherine's always so coming in clutch with the advice on travel, always.
And your pants does fit in the small carry-on suitcase. I've done it numerous times.
Yeah, it's true. We have, again, all these questions. If we don't respond to them, I'll take note of them and we'll try and answer them next month as well. So please don't feel like we're not seeing them. There's just so much to get to, and we're so happy you're here and asking us these. Tina asked, has anyone heard of any doctors in Minnesota? A few people were asking where to find therapists. I'm going to put in the chat, and I think Karen had already put this in the chat too at one point, but there are some great resources to find lymphedema therapists, certified therapists. I'm going to put that in the chat, and I'll also include it in the replay email as well. But the Lymphatic Education and Research Network is a great place to start for the Centers of Excellence, as well as LANA's website, which is clt-lana.org, I believe. That's the Lymphology Association of North America. And you often see lymphedema therapists with that designation in their credentials. That means they're certified through LANA. So they are great to check with as well. Let's see. Fenton said that he likes all of our lymphedema furry mascots, mine and Amanda's pets that are making cameos. Thank you. Okay, let's see. Okay, Crystal asked, what's flat compression? Do you know why hormone doctors aren't covered? They have helped lipedema patients. I'm not sure what that means, the second part of the question.
Yeah, so flat knit compression is just a thicker custom compression. And hormone doctors, if it's an MD, should be covered by insurance.
Good point. Thank you. Okay. Kate asked, can you wear BioFlect and/or compression leggings with the LymphaPress? I have the full pants with the Optimal Plus pump, or under Velcro wraps. We touched on this a little bit earlier. I'm not familiar with BioFlect. Karen, are you?
It's like Solidea, but it's a little
Okay.
bit softer. The only thing about wearing BioFlex under the Velcro wraps is that the Velcro can really snag the BioFlex or Solideas. So you just have to be careful. As far as wearing them under pumps, I know that what's recommended is to wear loose clothing, but in reality, I think that wearing compression is fine as long as it's not bunching up around the ankles or knees or joints, because it can cause breakdown if you're getting a lot of compression in an area where there's a lot of tight, bunchy elastic fabric. On the other hand, as was alluded to earlier, wearing quilted compression is giving you a double massage if you're using that with pneumatic compression. So it just all depends on what you're doing.
Thank you, Karen. We're getting close to the end, and I know Catherine wanted to talk about the upcoming National Lymphedema Network Conference, whose details were just announced recently. So she's going to share a little bit about that before we get to whatever questions we have time for at the end. Take it away, Catherine.
So this year, the National Lymphedema Network Conference is actually going to be held in Philadelphia. It is October 4th. I think it's Wednesday, October 4th through Sunday, October 8th. And if you are a member of the National Lymphedema Network, which just keep in mind, to be a supporting member, it's only $50. You actually get quite the discount on being able to register for the National Lymphedema Network Conference. Actually right now for members, it is actually only $3.99 for the entire week. That does not include the hotel, but it does include the whole 5 days, 4 or 5 days for the conference. And as time goes on, the price does go up, just as the price does go up if you are not a member. I want to say that as of May 1st, the price goes to, I think it was $5.99 for members, and I think it's $7.99 for non-members. And they have different dates to make sure that you register by in order to snag the pricing, certain prices.
Awesome. Do you mind dropping the link in the chat for that?
Sure.
And I'll make sure to include that in the replay email too.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Last year's conference, NLN conference, was really cool, and it was very different because they had a lot of surgeons there. So usually it's very therapist focused, but they brought in this more surgery focused, programming to it as well, which was pretty cool to see the blend of that, because lymphedema, as many of us know, is so multidisciplinary in its care. We have a whole team of people who help us, whether it's our therapists or doctors or our fellow patients who we lean on for support and encouragement, like those of us here tonight. Let's see, Fenton is bullying my cat in the comments. Thanks, Fenton. Commenting on his size. Oh, Fenton asks also, is anyone going to the Lymphedema Treatment Act celebration ceremony in May in Washington, D.C.? If you are, say hi to Fenton because it sounds like he might be going. And lymphedema-treatment-act.org, I believe, is their website, or maybe it's lymphedema-treatment.org. I'll look that up and add that in the chat too, since that's come up a couple times during tonight's conversation, especially with the Medicare conversation. See. All right, lymphedema-treatment-act.org. And Catherine put the link in for the NLN. Thank you. Okay, let's see. Holly asked, should she talk to the orthopedic PE about the compression in addition to the surgeon before knee surgeries? We talked about that a little bit earlier, but Catherine or Karen, do you want to revisit that?
Sure. I'm assuming she means PT, is my guess. And I think it's real important to talk to the PT who's going to be working with you, especially if there's somebody who you work with for your lymphedema. And if they're not, familiar, if this particular PT is not familiar with lymphedema, maybe you can potentially put them in contact with your CLT to have a conversation with each other about what the plan is and how they can both work together to help you, one, prepare for the surgery, and two, figure out what the best options are for you to utilize post-surgical.
Thanks, Catherine. Rochelle in the chat, she asked a question. Actually, Rochelle, you had emailed me also a question I wanted to make sure we got to as well. First, Rochelle had emailed asking, due to wounds already healed, opening up, she turned her compression down from 30 to 25. How does this impact her treatment? That's question one. And then I'll go to her second question after. But Karen, could you speak to what the compression levels might do for someone's treatment if you lower it?
Well, I think, well, first off, the compression levels are usually determined by the doctor. In reality, a lot of times they're titrated in the clinic with the lymphedema therapist. And I always want to make sure that people are feeling comfortable, that they're not feeling pain. I think that feeling like you're getting a strong hug is appropriate, but if something is really sore, then it needs to be turned down.
Good point. Thanks, Karen. Rochelle also asked that they heard massage referred to as brushing, which I'm assuming dry brushing. I know some people on the panel do dry brushing. Do you want to speak to that? I personally have not tried that, but I know it helps a lot of people.
It's a superficial treatment. So if you want to stimulate your superficial lymphatics, it's a nice way to do that. And in some ways, a little easier than MLD. You can do it in the MLD patterns, but it's not going to do a thing for deep fibrosis or the deeper lymphatics. So I often it depends on the person and what their situation is. Dry brushing would probably be most appropriate for someone with very, very mild lymphedema.
That's a really good distinction to make. I appreciate you saying that, Karen, because I didn't even think that it was just the superficial part too. So that's a good point to make. We're winding down to the last few minutes here. And for a lot of us, we're getting into the warmer weather where we live. I know we're kind of scattered around the Northern Hemisphere here, or Western Hemisphere, but North America on the panel. Does anyone want to have some tip or give some tips on how they're dealing with the increase in heat? Because hot weather is a lymphedema patient's nemesis for most of us. I know it is for me. So Catherine, go ahead.
So for me in the warm weather, which right now I'm actually in South Carolina, but I'm actually normally from New Jersey, and it's warmer in New Jersey than it is in South Carolina right now. It is super helpful for me to take my Tribute Night and put it either in the refrigerator or the freezer. I got the A-OK from the company. This is actually a suggestion from them directly on doing this. Because what it does is it actually cools off the garment. So when you put the garment on, it does not become hard like you would think, oh, I'm freezing it like an ice cube. It doesn't become hard. And it allows the garment to keep my leg cool while it's on, and it doesn't, my leg doesn't sweat through it. I also take cooler baths and showers to help. And honestly, this is probably one of the biggest ones, is I try to avoid sunburn as much as possible, because that can be detrimental to me. I've had experience with that. And our compression garments actually have SPF entailed within them. However, I'm always a little bit skeptical on how effective is that SPF going to work. So I will take a towel and I will cover on top of my compression garment to make sure that it does not get through those little itty bitty squares, you know, that are formed where the garment, how the garments are made, to prevent sunburn from happening. So I actually have a picture of myself where I look like a 3-limbed lobster. So everything is sunburned on me except for my lymphedema leg. So that is super important to make sure that you don't get sunburn.
Tina Kunkel says, fans, air conditioner. Yes, and yes. And cool showers are nice also, she says. And Fenton says, start saving for future AC bills. Drink lots of H2O too. Water is always super important. Angela, oh, sorry, go ahead. You saved Angela.
Go ahead, Angela.
What do you want me to
I was going to call on Angela because she's had experience with the dry heat of Arizona and then Carolina summers too. So
yeah, right now I'm in North Carolina. I've been here since December, and hopefully we'll be going back to Arizona next weekend, but the heat there is very dry, and the hottest I've experienced is 120 degrees. And right now, I think it's around 90 degrees there. And here in North Carolina, it's like 50, 60. So what I figured out for me was to, when I'm in that heat, to avoid prolonged exposure. I'm not really an outdoor person as far as, oh, I can't wait to get outside. I'm not that person. So for me, it's avoid prolonged exposure and stay hydrated and just skin protection.
super important. Go ahead, Karen.
I always recommend this time of year to all my patients to check with their local electric company, because a lot of them will offer a medical discount for people who have conditions that require extra cooling. They will often give a discount to the utility bill. So I have applications in my office that I hand out like hotcakes. So you might want to just check with your provider and see. And bonus, if you use a CPAP, or someone in your household does, you might be eligible for the discount year-round, because that's considered life support.
That's awesome. I never knew about that at all. That's a really good advice. Thank you.
I'll piggyback on top of the summer advice. I say start shopping it around now for garments that you can tolerate, that give you really good containment, that you actually feel comfortable in wearing. What you wear during the winter time, your nice thick, fuzzy, woolly, thick garments don't necessarily feel so great in the summertime. So start doing your shopping ahead of time and start learning that there are things that you can do to combat your inflammation. Start to naturally bring down, get out there and start walking, drink your waters, eat anti-inflammatory foods, get good compression on. Do everything now that you can to fight any excess inflammation. So it's going to make those hotter months easier to transition into.
Amanda, you got a question specifically from Kate, who asked if you could speak to the fast and go for summer or warmer weather, fast and go bandages.
I think this just comes back down to, the whole softs versus bandages. I love my fast and goes. They're super soft. I know this sounds like really weird, but I felt like an Egyptian mummy, like the first time, like I seriously felt like Cleopatra when I wore them. I don't know if that was a good thing to be mummified, but the cotton is just super soft. You can control the compression on there. I like bandaging for that aspect, because if you do have a flare up, bandages still fit. If you have a flare up, you might not fit those compression stockings. And you can walk in them, they fit into a shoe, you can wear them to bed. So whether you do daytime or nighttime wear, I do love my Fast and Go. And hey, you can use my discount code. There you go, there's my plug. ASOBI if you want that extra discount. But yeah, Fast and Go any time of the season, I think really does work. It's an extra tool in the trunk. And I'm a big fan of bandaging, but it is an art form. Not everyone can manage, and especially like leg limpies or even arm limpies, because you're kind of down an arm, but they have an anchor point for the arms. But if you have a hard time reaching your feet and you need extra help, Fast and Go makes application really easily. Discount code ASOBI. I'll just type it in. Here we go, guys.
Thanks, Amanda.
Send to everyone. ASOBI. There you go.
We are at our stopping point now. It's hard to believe. I know we say this every month, but time flies when you're talking about lymphedema. We're so happy you spent your hour with us tonight. We're here every second Tuesday of every month, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I put a link in the chat for our registration links. Also, if you have any questions about LymphaPress or want to learn more, you can reach out to me at marketing@lymphapress.com. Happy to connect you with your local rep. And yeah, we're just so happy you're here. You're going to get a replay of this recording or of this event to your email automatically in a couple days. We do a little editing and get the graphics nice for you, and it'll be up on our YouTube channel as well. Everybody is saying their thank yous and goodbyes in the chat. We're so happy that y'all were here, and we will see you again in May, if you can believe it, already May. So
wow,
anyway,
crazy.
I know, it's insane. Thanks, everybody. Hope you have a great evening. Bye-bye.